The NASCAR Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by the SGPN merch store. Use promo code SGPNBA to get 10% off of everything in the SGPN store.
Driver, start your engine!
Strap in and pull those belts up tight as the Sports Gambling Podcast Network presents the NASCAR Gambling Podcast.
I'll wreck my mom to win a championship. I'll wreck your mom to win a championship.
With all the news and the best bets for your NASCAR weekend.
It refrains me from not beating the out of you right now because you asked me stupid questions. But since I'm on probation, I suppose that's improper to say as well. If you could talk about racing things, we could talk about racing things.
Now, here are your hosts, Rod Villagomez and Cody Zeeb.
Getting prepared for more super speedway racing. This is the NASCAR Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. He's Cody Zeeb. I'm Rod Villagomez. It's Thursday, and that must mean it is time for DFS talk. I know it's not normally Thursday because it's normally Friday, but we got no trucks this week, so we're moving everything up an episode, and then of course Friday we'll have a guest for you as well. But Cody, brother, super speedway racing. I know you love betting on super speedway racing.
Oh.
Do you love DFS?
You know, if you've listened the last 2 days, how much I love betting on super speedways. I also love playing DFS on super speedways. I don't need a fancy spreadsheet. I don't need this lineup optimizer that does all this crap. I put names in a hat. I let my daughter draw lineups out for me, and half the time those are the ones that win. This race gives everybody a level playing field and chance to win things. Now, you have got to treat it the same way you treat betting on a super speedway. You put those lineups in, expect to win nothing. If you have any willpower at all, do not look at those lineups until 25, 30 minutes after the race is over and they've settled all the chaos from the last couple of laps. They've adjusted where people finished 18 times and put the final scores in there for you. That's when it's safe to look. Your lineups will fluctuate, possibly tens, possibly hundreds, possibly thousands of dollars in just a matter of one lap. Things are so crazy and change so much at super speedways that it does fluctuate like crazy. If you're like me, you're going to watch that roller coaster ride because you can't jump off. I love to watch it just go up and down and watch myself win money and then lose it and then win it again and then lose it and then think I won it and then for them to finish the final scoring. And I lost it all, but it's always a good time. Again, I mean, this is kind of the everyday casual DFS player, which I would say we're more of that type than we're not entering 150 lineups and have all these spreadsheets and that us by now. That's not us. But this is the type of race that equalizes that for us, gives us the chance. And if you're doing any research at all, you're already doing more than the common DFS player, right? And so just by listening to this, that already gives you that heads up because now you're going to hear us go over this. You're going to hear us talk about how you don't have to spend all your salary. Leave $5,000 on the table. Leave $10,000 on the table. It doesn't matter at super speedways. You can do whatever you want. You can stack the back. You can go cheap drivers. You can get some expensive guys, all middle of the road guys, whatever you want. There is not a bad strategy in DFS. I was going to say maybe don't play the guys starting first through sixth, but if we end up with a race like last year at Talladega, that might end up being the winning play. So there is no bad strategies at a super speedway when it comes to DFS. But obviously there are still some advantages to be had. Certain guys you're going to want to target more than other guys, certain guys that have super high ceilings, maybe lower floors, but if you're looking to go for it all. And so, yeah, there is still the advantage to be gained. Don't turn the show off, of course, but it is a much more fun DFS grouping because it is so much harder to predict and the craziest lineups win money. At the end of the race, Just go look at whatever contest you entered and go to the top and see who they had. And you're going to be like, they had who? And it's going to shock you. It does every time.
Super Speedway DFS is not for the faint of heart. I will tell you that right now. Cody, I know you're the junkie that has to watch. I can't. I literally can't, because then the second guessing starts, the just making every wrong life decision after that starts. I'm always just a fan of putting it down, getting into the Discord and sweating it out there. I'm not even worried about my lineups. Because I can't do it. I don't have the willpower to not want to throw my phone across and then pick it back up again when, the caution comes out and my guys are still up there and everybody else's are crashed. And then, of course, a pit strategy goes wrong and my guys, I don't have the heart for that. I'm not there. And again, like you said, we're not 150 lineup guys. We don't want to, we're for the folks that are like, hey, let's enter a couple of GPPs. Let's enter a couple of cash games and see where we go. Because if you want 150 lines, you can make 150 lines on a super speedway. That's pretty easy. Just start random generating.
I'll probably end up close to there just by the time I'm done picking all my random lineups. But this is the type of race where I actually put that many lineups in compared to just a couple on other weeks.
Well, and then this is a more of a spread out kind of a thing. It's not a precision lineup. One lineup is not going to probably get you where you need to go. Obviously, because if the big one happens, when the big one happens, what am I saying?
Yeah. There's no ifs about it.
No. When the big one happens, it's just how many of your drivers from each lineup have been collected in it and where you sitting afterwards. So yeah, you're right. This is one where you should put a lot of lineups in. But, just know that any optimizer for Talladega probably won't give you the optimal lineup.
Yes, that's the basic gist of it.
Yeah. So, all right, well, let's talk about this race. We do have to step away for a quick break. And when we come back, we will talk to you about the GEICO 500 from, I buried the lead. I didn't even say the name of the race. The GEICO 500 from the Talladega Superspeedway. Hang tight. We'll be right back after we tell you about Underdog Fantasy. We're brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. The NBA and NHL playoffs are here, and what better way to get down on some player prop parlays than over at Underdog Fantasy? Besides the NHL, NBA, and MLB games they got going on, they also already got NFL best ball drafts with a guaranteed cool $500,000 in prizes. Head over to UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code SGPN. Again, one of the, do they call it the crown jewel anymore? I feel like it's a crown jewel race of NASCAR. It is the GEICO 500. It is the first race at Talladega of the season. Always a lot of pomp, always a lot of circumstances. Drivers will run 188 laps around this 2.660 mile paved track for, you guessed it, 500 miles of pack racing, of tapered spacer racing. It just doesn't sound as cool as restrictor plate, but these guys will be running around in groups. Obviously, laps led is an issue here. Although we're not going to probably see somebody run away with an entire 100 laps like we do at some tracks. In fact, last fall, the leader here only led 36 laps total, and that was Ross Chastain. He shared that with Eric Almirola, by the way, if you were wondering, at another 36 laps. Ryan Blaney had another 31. At the GEICO 500 last season, the leader of the entire race as far as laps were concerned was 38, and that was William Byron. Kyle Larson had 32. Daniel Suarez had 28. Eric Jones had another 25. We'll talk about that in a second. But, again, you're probably expecting somewhere around 35 at probably the high point as far as how many laps a given leader will lead on this track. So this is where we start building, if you want a precision lineup, if you want one, these are the kinds of things you got to start taking into account. Obviously, fastest laps are part of this as well. Place differential. Until they qualify, it could change 6. That's the one thing that changes more than anything. Obviously, is place differential. They could start in the back of the pack. They could go to the front. Then they could say, well, I'm out of here. I don't want to play anymore in this stuff. So they'll go to the back and wait around a little bit and then dart back up to the front again. So, I mean, this is why you don't watch these lineups, man, because you just don't know where they're going to be at any given lap.
Yeah, well, and then, I mean, it takes a split second for them to be wrecked, and then it doesn't matter, or for a wreck to happen, and Austin Dillon goes from 18th to 1st, and you're looking gold, like gold. So, yeah, it's, again, 188 laps. That's some laps led, but not a crazy amount. This is a huge track. The lead at some points can change 6 times in a single lap. So you only get credit if that guy leads the lap. He might not lead the next one. He might lead the one after that. Fastest laps will be spread out throughout the field. It's not always the leader. A lot of times it isn't the leader. It's somebody else that got a run on a specific lap. So fastest laps, you kind of got to throw out. It's not, who's going to be fast here. It's so hard to figure that out. I think that shooting for laps led is very hard because it is so tough to do. There's a couple of guys I think you can look at that might be able to give you some very high upside. Chase Elliott is one of those. He led 166 laps last season on superspeedways between the 6 superspeedway races. But you divide 166 by 6. I'm not doing a math at this moment, but it doesn't work out to be that many laps per race. Now, yes, he's getting you laps led every race, which helps, and it's something you can count on. But place differential and finishing position are the 2 biggest parts of this. So you don't necessarily have to stack the back. We will see guys that start up front, stay up front all day, and finish there. But if you're taking the guy who starts first, keep in mind he's getting no place differential points, and he could potentially get 37 minus place differential points. That's a low ceiling on that. Now, if he spends half the day up front, leads a ton of laps, gets some laps led, and finishes first, he can still have a solid day. And so that's what opens up every single person in the player pool. Some weeks we'll go to the bottom and we'll say, nope. There is not a bad play at a super speedway. If BJ McLeod comes out and qualifies on the pole, which is not going to happen, but if it randomly did somehow, maybe that would be a bad play because he's likely not going to finish first and it wouldn't pay off for you. But he's likely going to start bad. That's going to give you that opportunity to play some guys farther back. So it's got to be a combination of place differential. You can do some stack-to-back lineups where you start guys all in the 30s or all in the 20s, 30s. There are so many different ways you can go about this. Place differential is the biggest one, along with finishing position. Those are the 2 things you should weigh more than anything. Now, if you want to make some go-for-broke lineups, you get a guy like Elliott, like Keselowski, like Logano, like Chastain, that can run up front and lead a ton of laps and play the Pied Piper at the front of the field. You load a couple of those guys up, maybe 2 or 3 of them, split all the laps led. If they can manage those good finishes, that might be a way for you to win. And again, that's the fun thing about this is there are so many different ways to go about building this. You can stack by manufacturer. We see a lot of manufacturers run together, right? So do a lineup of 6 Fords. I don't know if you can fit all 6 Toyotas in there, but if you can, you could do a Toyota lineup. You do a Chevy lineup, do all 4 Hendrick guys, and then pick 2 other Chevys to work with. Different ways you can build lineups and try to craft your narrative for how you maybe think this race is going to be. You think it's going to be an absolute shit show? Play a bunch of the cheap guys, right? Guys in the back, guys like Jay Yaley. That's probably not going to be keeping up with the main pack where he'll get in a wreck. And so he'll get a decent finish at the end. Guys like BJ McLeod are in that category. It's just craft however you think this race is going to go. Throw darts at a board. Like I said, I literally have my daughter. I put all of the car numbers in a hat every time I go to a super speedway. She'll pick out 10 different lineups for me. She pulls out the card number, reads it off. We plug it in there, and that's it. I just run with those lineups, and I've won some pretty decent money with it before. It is that random at a super speedway. So if you are a first-time player and you're wanting to kind of get into it, you don't know much about it, this is the perfect race to do it. You could lose, but you have just as good of a chance as anybody else does on any other given week this week. So it is a lot of fun to play.
Super Speedway racing has quickly become Cody's daughter's favorite race of the year too, because she gets to participate in drawing. I hope you give her a little bit of a kickback off of that. And
I think she mooches off me enough that it all washes out in the end.
Just a little boost to the allowance. Come on, Dad.
I mean, I pay for a house for her to live, and she doesn't like it when I bring these types of things up. But
why would she?
Where'd my coupon for that food go? Like I had it for lunch. Why'd you take my All your food is free, bro. Chill, okay? It's not like that food is going to be any different than the rest of the free food you get.
Life lessons learned a hard way. No, but go back to your point too about where to start and where finishing. Last year's spring race is a classic example of that. Christopher Bell starts on the pole, ends up finishing 22nd. I'm sure a lot of people were high on Christopher Bell, like just being the fact that he's Christopher Bell, good on super speedways, but ended up finishing 22nd in that race. Daniel Hemrick started third. Probably people were going, oh, wow, Daniel Hemrick, that's a cheap guy. We could probably get some good mileage out of him.
Does anybody say good things about Daniel Hemrick ever?
I do.
Besides
On
you, Rod.
Xfinity. I love Daniel Hemrick. But he finished 36th in that race. Daniel Suarez started fourth. He finished 31st. So, again, that's just to further Cody's point about these guys that start in the front don't always finish that way. And you got to be careful if you're trying to load up on these guys in the front, because especially after qualifying, it's very tempting. It's very tempting to say, ooh, this guy is probably going to jump out and lead a ton of laps early, but that doesn't happen at Talladega. So if you're a new DFS player, if you've come by way of the YouTube channel and you're now watching because of DFS, we always caution you on super speedways that you just have to be very careful as to what you're paying attention to. And look, I know qualifying is huge in other races to give us a gauge of these 1.5 mile tracks where it's probably easy for a guy to jump out to a lead. But here, that first place could turn into 10th a half a lap into this, and you're like, whoa, I didn't even get anywhere in this guy.
Yeah, exactly. And then a couple other things too. Generally, probably your top 5, 7, 10. Like, if you're going to play one of those guys, it's got to just be probably one of them. Sticking more than one of those guys up there, you're really asking for a lot to happen at that point. Kyle Larson only makes my lineups if my daughter draws his number. No, I don't take Kyle Larson's number out of the hat. It's in the hat too. That's the only time, just in case, because he finished fourth here last year, so it can happen. Martin Truex Jr., another guy, not good at. We don't bring that up enough on the betting side of things. Not good at super speedways. I probably should do that next time we're at a super speedway, because he also just doesn't seem to get the hang of it. I don't know. Just he doesn't get the results either. I don't think he's as inconsistent as Larson is, but those are two guys I generally try to mostly avoid, to be honest with you.
All right. Well, I guess it's time to tell people who we're not going to avoid. Obviously, the list is long, but as we always do, we've given you 6 guys to at least put a little bit more on. You can fit, I think, all of these guys actually in one lineup.
I'm sure you can. we went pretty cheap at the top.
we certainly did, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I looked at both of ours and we were like, yep, we both are on the same page as far as that's concerned. So we'll start with our highest price driver. I was almost going to scrap the whole high, mid, and low and just say 6 drivers to target, which is
that would make it even tougher, because then you're just really drawing 6 names out of a hat.
Pretty much. But we kept the general format for you. We don't want to stray too far away, but we'll get into all that when we come back. Well, let's tell you about the SGPN merch store, because as always, we're brought to you by the SGPN merch store. In honor of the NBA playoffs from now until the end of April, you get 10% off of anything in the SGPN merch store when you use the promo code SGPN or SGPNBA. That is absolutely what I mean, SGPNBA. If you use that promo code, head over there to store.sportsgamblingpodcast.com. Use that promo code SGPNBA, and you can actually get a cool little shirt like this. This is, of course, for the old-fashioned fantasy football podcast on the SGPN, hosted by my good friends, Justin Mark and Miranda Mark, the Marks. And they are, obviously, you can find them on the feed as well. But go over there, support them, support us. Get NASCAR merch, get F1 merch, get whatever merch you want. But use our promo code SGPNBA and get 10% off of that and be happy.
That's a lot of letters all combined up in there.
Alphabet soup. I mean, we're both military men. Acronyms are our life. So
yeah, I'm tired of acronyms, but yes.
Yeah.
Also, love your shirt. I believe I have the exact same one. I actually have multiple old-fashioned football shirts. Again, one of my favorite shows on the network. Definitely check them out. They do a great job, and even despite being Iowa fans, they're pretty good at what they do.
I mean, I don't have any bias against them, but that's you. That's you in the Midwest, man. Us West Coasters are like, man.
Iowa sucks, but it's okay. At least they have legal gambling over there, so they help me out sometimes.
All right. Well, Cody, who is your highest priced driver suggestion for this DFS slate?
Yeah, so I did mention Chase Elliott a few minutes ago. I had originally put him in here. He's the third highest priced driver on the slate. I wrote him up in my article this week. Make sure you check that out over at sportsgamblingpodcast.com. He is a guy that I really like, but as always, he gets the Dallas Cowboys bump. He gets the New York Yankees bump. He gets the most popular driver bump. He is always going to be a popular play, but he is very good here. Obviously, I picked him as one of my winners in the betting episode on Tuesday, so just something to keep in mind. But I decided to scroll down a little bit and took a guy borderline, could be mid-tier, but I'm going to count him as high tier. At $9,200, Mr. Brad Keselowski. Yes, I'm very high on him this weekend. This is a guy, though, I'm going to warn you right now, most of the time he is a boom or bust on super speedways. Brad Keselowski is very much wreckers or checkers, right? He's going to get one or the other. Now, he did finish second place at Atlanta, the last super speedway we were at, so that's a good example. But if you go back, he's one of the best super speedway racers in the series, right? We talked about it on the betting show as well, but Dale Earnhardt has 10 wins at Talladega. Next on that list is a three-way tie between Jeff Gordon, Dale Earnhardt Jr., and Brad Keselowski at 6 wins. That is the elite of elite lists to be on. Brad Keselowski, one of those guys. You go back to the Daytona 500, led 42 laps out front. So again, you can't always count on these guys to lead laps, and I don't take laps led into account too much. But if I am going to try and hit the nail on the head on who leads the most laps, Brad Keselowski is a guy who spends a lot of time at the front of the field. You go to Atlanta, he led 47 laps there as well. So that's the 2 super speedway races we've had so far this season. That's Brad Keselowski out front in both of them. You go back to last year's Daytona 500, he led 67 laps in that one. So he can get out there and he can lead laps. Now, the results can be a mixed bag sometimes, right? He led 42 laps in the Daytona 500, but he finished 42nd. He didn't finish 42nd when they only start 40 cars these days. But he finished 22nd there. And then, like I said, he led 47 at Atlanta and finished second there. So you're getting the most out of him right there. And at Daytona, I don't remember where he started. I don't have it in front of me. But a 22nd place finish is so-so unless he was starting all the way at the back. But then you go back to last year. You look at his results. Again, it can be a mixed bag. 9th place in the 500, 12th at Atlanta, some good solid finishes there. 23rd at Talladega, 7th rather at Atlanta, so a good finish there again. 35th at the second race at at Daytona rather, and then 24th at Talladega. So you got some good finishes, right? A 9th, a 12th, a 7th, and then you got some bad finishes, a 35th in there, a couple 20th place finishes. So Brad Keselowski, I wouldn't use anybody in every lineup, especially this week, because there is just so many unknowns, and you don't. That's the thing is, if you play one guy, if you wheel a guy all the way around that first wreck, or he's the first guy who has a problem, whatever, and your day's pretty much just shot at that point. So don't do that. But he's a guy that maybe you're pushing it probably a little bit in the cash games, but in GPPs, he's got the high upside. That's what I really like. I picked him as a winner. I think we're going to see him get back to victory lane here for a 7th time and just be right behind Dale Earnhardt on that list. So give me some Brad Keselowski at $9,200.
Hey, please don't play one guy across all of your lineups. This is not
even if you only enter 2 lineups. Don't play the same guy in both lineups.
Don't play the same guys in both lineups. Like, find some other variations that you can put. I can't stress that highly enough. Those of you who are savvy super speedway DFS players, and you probably are already got your eyeballs on a bunch of these guys, but yeah, obviously just don't, because I don't want to see your guys' day get tanked after the first big one. After 4 laps, somebody gets jostled around and BJ McLeod gets into JJ Yaley and takes out the whole field. And now we're all screwed. But
as long as BJ McLeod beats JJ Yaley, go back.
And
to the betting show.
I was going to say it probably wouldn't happen because they're both going to be in the back. So I don't know. Maybe
That's probably a 2-car wreck at that point.
I was going to say it ripples forward. I don't know how the big one can ripple forward, but it'll ripple forward.
You never know. Maybe a tire gets loose, chases the field down. I don't know.
Or a tire just sits there chilling.
Well, it sits there on the lap for 8, or on the track for 8 laps before NASCAR decides to throw the caution just late enough to fuck us on our Brad Keselowski bets.
Oh my God, let that not happen again. All right, well, I am going to go with Denny Hamlin at $9,900, sort of the lower end of the higher price drivers in this field, and he sits as the 4th highest priced driver, but the first that's just outside of the 10K range. Again, for Denny Hamlin, this has been sort of a lackluster season, as it were. He wants more. I know the team wants more. And then, of course, his whole podcast shenanigans and everything. It just feels like this has been Denny Hamlin's bad start to the season. But we also saw that last year, too, where Denny Hamlin was having a not so good start to the season. And we joked about fading Hamlin all the time. And eventually he ended up turning it all around. And this is a track where I really feel like he can turn this around because he's done it before in his career. We talked about it on the betting show. He sat on the pole 3 times in a row over the last 5 races. So in 2020, he sat on the pole in the fall. To start the 2021 season, he started on the pole. In the fall, he started on the pole. He won the fall 2020 race here. And then in 5 races, he's got 3 top 10 finishes, 2 top 5 finishes. Even before that, in 2019 and the spring of 2020, he had a 3rd place and a 4th place finish. Overall, he's got 15 top 10 finishes in 34 starts, 10 top 5s, 2 wins total. Of course, it's been a while since he's won, so not really going to count on him to win, but a good solid finish. He actually has led some laps on this as well. Last fall, he led 20. He led 9 in the spring, 6 in the fall of the previous year, 43 in the spring of 2020, on the fall of 2021, and then 26 and 18. So again, he's been in the front for at least, 10, 15 laps in 3 of the 4. And so I really feel like this is a good track for Denny Hamlin to get this done. A decent super speedway racer overall. Look at what he's done at Daytona in his 35 starts. Daytona hasn't been necessarily a fun track for him over the last couple of seasons. He kind of killed out the
Except
2020.
for all those Daytona 500 wins.
Well, yes, but over the last couple of years,
yes.
it's not been fine. 17th to this spring at Daytona, 25th in the fall of 2021, 37th in the spring of 2021, and then 13th in the fall of 2021. And that, but I mean, again, it was a good Daytona 500 for him in 2021, where he got 5th, and then 3rd the fall before that. He won in the spring of 2020. He won the 2019 Daytona 500. But again, we know that Denny Hamlin can get it done on super speedways. Lots of laps led on those. 98 in the Daytona 500 in 2021 with that 5th place finish. So yeah, Denny Hamlin definitely has the chops on super speedways. He's just got to be able to stay clean, keep his head level, right? I mean, Denny's got a lot of distractions right now just with his own. I don't know, Cody, and maybe the podcast is giving him a little more something to distract him. I feel like he's good on the podcast, but like, I don't know, man. When you're a podcaster, your mindset changes.
I don't know. Yeah, it's tough, man. I just to go off on a side thing quick. I was listening to Corey LaJoy. He's obviously got his show today, or that came out. Yeah, whatever. I don't know what I was trying to say there. Anyways, Corey LaJoy has his show, the Stacking Pennies show, and he was talking about how he doesn't understand why all these guys are complaining about not being able to pass, and he loves how things are such more of a level playing field, and you can strategy your way to the front. And I'm like, thank you. That's exactly what I was trying to say, but he makes a solid point. Like guys like Denny Hamlin, he wants it to be Hendrick and Gibbs are so much better than everybody else because then he doesn't have to work as hard to beat all these other guys. And I've not understood why these guys have been complaining so much about how, I mean, again, you look back and we've had all these different winners to open the season. We had the same thing last year. Like it makes it so much more competitive. And then when he said that today, it just clicked. It was like, well, duh, they just want to dominate and not have to work as hard for it. Right. And a guy like Corey can benefit so much from it. So side tangent there, but if you're putting together a Mount Rushmore of active drivers on super speedways, Denny Hamlin makes it. He is very good on super speedways. No argument from me in playing him. He is also extremely smart. You'll be watching the race. Denny Hamlin is in the mix. All of a sudden, the 11 car will go to the top, and you're like, what's going on? He's got a problem. Nope. He's just saying, fuck it. I'm out of here. Things are getting too dangerous. He'll go ride with J.J. Yaley and B.J. McLeod for a while. The field will wreck in front of him, and then he makes his way back to the front when it matters. He is probably the smartest, most, I think he gives it the most thought during the race. And to hear him talk, too, afterwards, like on his podcast about, like, the thoughts going through his head and, like, he's thinking about these chess moves as he's making them at almost 200 miles an hour, 2 inches from other cars that are going the same speed with all the drag and downforce and wind, like everything that's going on. And he's just processing these chess moves in real time as it happens. It's pretty amazing. And he is one of the best at it. So, yeah, you're never going to get an argument from me on Denny Hamlin at a super speedway.
Yeah, he's definitely going to have a fast car for sure. So definitely want to throw him in a few, if not a lot, not all. Remember, not all of your lineups. So, all right, we'll take a step down in price as we step away. And when we come back, we will do exactly that. But for those of you who watch on YouTube, this magical new invention that somebody invented called YouTube, I don't know what it is. I'm still trying to figure it out. But somebody says that you can put videos on the internet and people watch them. You guys have been doing that, and that's pretty cool. And we want you to continue to do so. So if you have not yet migrated your way over to that fancy new site called YouTube, it's youtube.com, http:// it is youtube.com and search for the NASCAR Gambling Podcast. We're there. We're smiling. We're happy. And we're going to continue to do so. So you subscribe, comment, ring the bell, do whatever you got to do to keep this thing going on. We've been having a blast so far. Cody?
www. Also, if you are watching on YouTube, apologies for my continual nose blowing. Battling a bit of a cold here, but I'm powering through.
This is what you don't get when you listen to us on audio.
Exactly. You would have no idea I was blowing my nose during that break.
But here's the thing. For those of you who are listening on the OG platforms, whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast, thank you very much. And if you could do so, take the time to go ahead and leave a review. Give us a rating. Again, the bosses love to see it, and they'll continue to praise us because let's just face it, we do it all for the praise and all for the glory of what this podcast brings to us. Boy, I'd be pretty sad if that was the case, but yeah, do that anyways. We'll love you for it and do all the great stuff to support the show.
Hey, everybody. If you play fantasy football, especially in auction leagues,
or you're a whiskey fan,
yes, exactly. Check out the Sports Gambling Podcast Fantasy Football Channel show, Old Fashioned Football.
Coming to you every Tuesday morning, give us a listen. We'll bring you the latest fantasy football data, including
the injury report,
studs and duds,
waiver wire targets,
and suggested fab.
Market movers. After all, we are the Marks.
He is my hubby.
And she's J Mark's wifey.
And we're bringing all this to you while drinking an old fashioned and giving you our honest review of a different whiskey every week.
All that and more. Hop on over, give us a listen, come for the football, stay for the whiskey.
This ad's almost done.
Going once, going twice.
Sold.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm doing the YouTube thing right, and I kind of don't really. I know there's not a right or wrong answer, I guess, to how you YouTube, but I don't know. I remember when it first came out and everybody was trying to find the formula, and I feel like in the 15 or so years that YouTube has been around, we still don't know exactly what the formula is that works. So I don't know if I want to ever figure it out. So it's fine. I love you guys anyways. Thanks for watching. Hi.
Yeah, it's again, you're watching a podcast, so we don't have a ton of production value, not wearing any makeup or anything like that. So here we are. You get us. We appreciate you. It's crazy how many people have been watching some of these videos. It's yeah, I didn't really expect that when they told us we were going over there. I figured 3 people would watch, and it's Rod's daughters and nobody else. But here we are.
Hey, listen, it could still be, and they could be finding as many devices.
all their spoof accounts. Hey, I don't care. As long as the numbers are there, it doesn't really matter.
All right, let's take a step down in price, but not value here.
That's right. Yes, it's basically even value across the board for the most part. But I am going to go with Bubba Wallace, 8,700. He is really good on super speedways and even more so at Talladega. He has got 10 starts at Talladega, and he has only not finished the race twice in those 10 starts. And again, that's been through multiple teams with Richard Petty with 2311, multiple car numbers at 2311, Chevy, Toyota. He's been consistent. And again, you go back and you look, let's see, it's been rough so far this season, right? He's got his 2 starts, 20th place at the 500, 27th at Atlanta. So neither of those results necessarily that great. But you go to 2022, he finished 12th in the Daytona 500, 13th at Atlanta, 17th at Talladega, 14th at Atlanta 2, 11th at Daytona 2, 16th at Talladega 2. That is all 6 races last season in this next car, and his worst finish was 17th place on a super speedway. That is consistency for you. Been a little bit of a rough start to the first 2 races, although 20th at the 500 isn't that bad. Again, depending on where he starts, but you're finishing the race, which that alone is the biggest challenge in trying to score DFS points, is finishing the race. So he can get it done. He's got the win at Talladega here a few years ago, and we know he can get it done. He's been so close at the Daytona 500 multiple times. I believe he's got 1 or 2 second-place finishes, maybe a 3rd place in there. He has been very, very good on the super speedways, consistently shows up. And again, man, his 6 races last season, that's just the biggest thing for me, is 17th, his worst finish. That means he was running at the end of all of them and had a very good season on super speedways. I expect more of that from Bubba this weekend. Maybe some people are off of him, right? Because you do think of him when you come to super speedways, but the 2 races we've had haven't been there. Maybe they're going to jump off the wagon a little bit. The rest of his season has kind of been topsy-turvy so far. He could right the ship very quickly this weekend in that number 23 car. And I really like Bubba Wallace this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's one of those streaky drivers that has so much emotion in him and just so much, I don't know. It's sort of a crazy thing for him because, like, he's more emotional than Kyle Busch, and we've seen Kyle Busch be very emotional. And Bubba Wallace, I mean, he was even saying, "I'm sorry, guys. I know you're probably going to find somebody better for me next week. Sorry." And he was like taking his final lap, just trying to get off. But I think you're right. I think a lot of people are going to be away from him. So maybe, obviously in GPP is a very good addition to your lineup. Cash games, maybe not quite so heavy. Obviously you want some of the bigger butts, but I think GPP, this is a very good dart throw as well.
Yeah. So, he said streak. You're right. He finished 9th place last week at Martinsville. So maybe this is the beginning of a good streak. I could see it coming from Bubba, and probably one of his favorite tracks, right? He got the win here, his very first win a couple of seasons ago, and he's run here since then and before then and always.
I love it. All right. My next driver is somebody we've had a lot of fun making fun of quite a few times over the last few years. Obviously, the name Ricky Stenhouse is synonymous with just about everywhere because everybody likes to make fun of that and say that he wrecks a lot of people. But this season, we're seeing, I think, a much different side of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Obviously, that win at Daytona to start the season was a very good feather in his cap. But then it's sort of been a little bit of hit and miss over the next couple of weeks, where he finished 12th in California, 24th in Vegas, 19th in Phoenix, and then 17th in Atlanta. But he did get a 7th place finish on the road course at Coda, 35th in Richmond. But he's riding a streak of 2 top 10 finishes. He had a 4th place at the Bristol Dirt, 8th place at Martinsville. You want to talk about streaky? This is a good place to get streaky and to break a streak. Ricky Stenhouse has not been very good at Talladega since he started driving this 47 car. He's at a 38th place finished 33rd, 16th, 30th, 22nd. But he has won on this track, ladies and gentlemen. He does have one win. He started from the pole and he ended with the checkered flag in his hand. Of course, he was in the 17 car. That was in 2017. Kind of a long way back for Ricky Stenhouse. But like I said, I mean, he's actually been in the mix this season. He's actually done well for himself to sort of shed that that, I guess, Ricky Stenhouse reputation. And the fact that he's even got 2 wins at Daytona under his belt proves that he is a good enough driver to find his way to the front every once in a while. And again, I'm not asking him to get to the front this time. I'd be happy with a solid top 10 finish out of Ricky Stenhouse, depending on where he starts, of course. But he may even get up and lead a few laps. He may even jump up and get some fastest laps for you. So there's a lot of possibilities. The range of outcomes for Ricky Stenhouse is gigantic. And I know that in DFS, you want to kind of shrink that a little bit and make it to where it's, a little more even keeled. But I think the risk versus the reward of him in some of your lineups this week is far greater than a lot of these other guys that are hanging around the price of Ricky Stenhouse. I've got him at $8,100. So again, he's proven to be a pretty consistent driver when he wants to be under certain circumstances, and a couple of short track top 10s. Now he gets to stretch his legs out for a big, long super speedway, stays out of trouble, drives not as aggressively because he knows that he can get to the front at a super speedway like he did in the spring. So I think this is good value for Ricky Stenhouse.
Yeah, I mean, you saw him do it at Daytona, right? 31st to the win, scored 81 points that day. That's a pretty solid day for you. We know he can get it done. He does have a high ceiling, as we've seen. He's also got a very low floor, so be careful because he is called Ricky Spinhouse for a reason, and that reputation may follow him. So just keep that in mind. Again, maybe you're building a high ceiling lineup. You got Brad Keselowski in there. You got Ricky Stenhouse in there. That's a nice solid start for you. But yeah, he is a guy that you have to talk about when you come to super speedways, especially with his run at Daytona and how the rest of his season has gone so far. They've really got things figured out, and he doesn't, there's not much pressure on him, right? He's almost locked into the playoffs. At this point, he is in the playoffs with that win, right? If you ask the interns at NASCAR, he's locked into the playoffs, even though they don't understand their own scoring system. But anyways, I got to bring that up every time. Every time I see that, I'm just like, how are they locked in? What if we end up with 17 winners and then they're not locked in unless you have 2 wins? Anyways, moving on.
Math is hard, Cody. Math is hard.
It's your point system. How do you not have this figured out? I don't understand. But anyways, he's got nothing to lose, right? So he can just kind of go for it, which could be good, could be bad, but it does give you that upside side of things. So yeah, he's a guy that you have to bring up. I mean, he's got 3 career wins on super speedways, so that's not a fluke. He hasn't just backed into 3 super speedway wins. He's gone out and earned them. He's got a Daytona 500. They're some of the greatest drivers ever in NASCAR. Can't say they have a Tony Stewart, no Daytona 500 wins. Dale Earnhardt, it took him over 20 years to get that first one. Like Kyle Busch doesn't have a Daytona 500 win. So he's been able to do that. So you have to bring him up when you talk about super speedway racing.
I agree. All right. Well, I blew through all of our breaks. I don't normally do that, but I was so excited to play the old fashioned promo that I blew through the breaks. So,
oh man. Well, how about since we skipped the news portion of things at the top of the show, which my bad on that, but there was a piece of news that has dropped since we last recorded. We had already put the Xfinity Series show on the record before the Austin Dillon news came out. NASCAR brought Oprah back in, handing out more penalties. Austin Dillon's car was one of the cars taken to the Research and Development Center randomly, quote unquote, if you're watching on YouTube, after the Martinsville race last week. And NASCAR found an illegal underwing mounting / assembly hardware. So Austin Dillon, that is, has been docked 60 points, 5 playoff points. Crew chief Keith Rodden has been fined $75,000 and suspended for 2 races. So, and RCR did announce they are going to appeal that. I have not seen anything on if they're going to delay that suspension or if Rodden will start serving the suspension. With it being a super speedway, it would probably make sense for him to start the suspension, just get it out of the way, even if it's returned later. Also, Andy Petrie, is, I think, I'm having a hard time with words today, Rod. But I believe he is the director of competition or something like that, vice president, president, owner. I don't know what he is, something high up at RCR. Also one of the, great crew chiefs that's been around in NASCAR. So I would imagine likely he just fills in So your crew chief gets suspended, and you might even get an upgrade in the process. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. Of course, they're going to appeal it. This will be the first appeal in the new appeals era, and we'll see how that plays out.
Everything will stand, and every other penalty that's been handed down over the last 2 months will be reinstated. That's how NASCAR is going to go around this. You guys want to play around? Fine. Everybody gets everything back. You all are all penalized again. This is how we.
Yeah, it's
we're parents, right? So we know how this works. Oh, you want to keep coming to me again? That's all right. Fine. Guess what? Now you're in your room for the next 2 weeks. Like I already put you in the room for 2 weeks. Now you're in for 2 weeks more.
Yeah, it's we'll see. So that it'll go through the appeals process, which again, they'll have to be transparent why they made the rulings. They've shortened what they can do with the changes and all that fun stuff. So we'll see how that plays out. And yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. But
because we can, Cody, because we can.
Yes,
that's why.
And let us know who will be the next randomly penalized person. And it'll likely happen this weekend.
It probably will. All right, who do we got for our lower priced drivers today?
Yes, some value plays. I am going all the way near the bottom of the board. BJ McLeod, so tempting, Rod. I just wanted to say his name in the show. We brought him up, found a way. If you haven't listened to the betting episode on Tuesday, go back and listen. We found a way to bet on BJ McLeod. It's glorious. It was a lot of fun. He could still finish 37th and cash that bet. So, yeah, definitely go check that out. Anyways, I went up a little. BJ McLeod is 4,500. I scooted up 3 spots to Riley Herbst, $5,000. Again, we talked about him in the Cup Series betting show. We talked about him in the Xfinity Series betting show. If you didn't listen to either of those, I don't know what you're doing. Definitely go back and listen. But Herbst is good at super speedways. One career start was the Daytona 500 in this same Rick Ware number 15 car. He finished 10th place there. An upside to Herbst, the Rick Ware cars do not have raw speed. He is likely not going to qualify well. And looking back at the Daytona 500, he ended up starting 38th of 40 cars, which he started 19th actually in the duel. So he qualified. That means he qualified 37th or 38th, one of the two. So not good anyways. That's my point, is he's likely going to be starting at the back, which is perfect. I love it. If Riley Herbst is one of the last 5 cars, he could be a guy that ends up in almost every single one of my lineups, just because very, very high ceiling as far as he won't be able to lose you many points, which sometimes is all you need at a place like this. And he'll have that high ability to get you points. Again, 10th place at the Daytona 500 and his 1 Cup Series start. His 2 Xfinity starts on super speedways this season. 6th at Daytona, 5th at Atlanta, means he finished the race. Go back to last season, much like Bubba Wallace, they only ran 5 Xfinity Series races on super speedways, but did not finish worse than 15th in any of them. 11th at Talladega, 15th at Daytona, 9th at Atlanta, 4th at Atlanta, 4th at Daytona. Very good super speedway racer Riley Herbst is. And again, he's going to be in one of those Rick Ware cars. I don't necessarily expect him to be dicing it up, leading a bunch of laps, but he can just be hanging around at the back there, stay out of trouble, keep it clean, just like he did at Daytona. Get you a nice solid 10th place finish, and that will be a very good day for you. Again, he started at 38th in the Daytona 500, finished 10th, 64.7 fantasy points at a salary of $4,700. They jacked him all the way up to $5,000 this week, but still very much playable.
Indeed. And you know, we love us some Riley Herbst. We've talked about him so much in the betting shows, and now that we get a chance to play him almost dirt cheap at a super speedway, I think good things are in for him. And maybe a name that not the most casual of NASCAR DFSers may not play because they think, he's an Xfinity guy.
Yeah.
I don't know if
who is this guy if they don't pay attention to Xfinity, or he's an Xfinity guy. You look, he's only had 1 race. And so people might pass right over him.
Yep. And somebody may pass on is my next guy, and that's Eric Jones. Eric Jones, for the better part of this season, has not been somebody that, if you look at his fantasy points per race, he's at 20.6. Now, Eric Jones is at $6,700 for this particular race, which is kind of around where he's been anyways. But last week, he got you 7 points. The week before that, 33. The week before that, 1. The week before that, 4. The week before that, 61. So it's definitely been a weird, wonky season for Eric Jones as far as especially fantasy is concerned, which again, like I said, is why a lot of people are going to be off of him. But you look at Atlanta, he finished 8th at Atlanta, started 28th in Atlanta. So that's a fantastic day at a super speedway-esque type of a track. Now, the downside of that is that in Daytona, he started 25th, but he crashed out and finished in 37th position. But the last few Talladega races have been absolutely fantastic for Eric Jones, where he's had a 9th place finish and 2 6th place finishes on this track after starting 26th in the fall of 2021 and finishing 9th. Started 16th in the spring of 2022, and he finished 6th. Started 12th in the fall and finished 6th. Led 48 laps. Geez, you're bad at math, so am I. Led 48 laps in those 2 races in 2022 as well. So again, Eric Jones has actually had success on this track, and not just in the 43, but in the 20. He had a 5th place finish and a 2nd place finish in 2020. Started 18th in the spring race and finished 5th. Started 16th in the fall race, finished 2nd here as well. So a lot of good DFS days for Eric Jones on this track. And again, like I said, this is a GPP play in which a lot of people are going to probably say that 43 car, Legacy Motorsports, is garbage right now. Noah Gragson can't get it done. Eric Jones can't get it done. This is kind of a rough go for it. Jimmy Johnson's had some very bad luck in the couple of races that he's been in that 84 car. So, I mean, again, this is one of those ones that could, if he catapults you from, 25th position to 5th, then you're looking at a very, very good day, especially if he manages to find his way to the front a few times and lead some laps before his ultimate 5th place finish. But again, 9th, 6th, 6th, he knows how to get to the front of Talladega. Think he does that again, kind of turns whatever junk show he's been around and makes the season a little bit better at least.
Yeah, he's another guy that I wrote up in my article. And yeah, I mean, my basic point was he's going to be a sneaky play that people aren't going to be on. And you look back 3 races in a row at this track, 2 6th place finishes, a 9th place finish. That's what sticks out the most to me. But he is a solid super speedway racer. And again, with as bad as he has been this season, I mean, last season he came out swinging, right? We go to Auto Club week 2 and like he's the fastest car in practice. He's hanging around top 5 all day. And it's like, whoa, this car really is parity. Like, look at Eric Jones. Like, we know he's got all this talent. He's just kind of stuck in this slower petty GMS car. And then Legacy has just looked like absolute trash this season. Everything has been bad so far. But for a driver like this, for a team like this, his season can switch so quickly. If Eric Jones has a good run here, if he manages to get a win or something like that, everything can turn around very quickly. He's definitely got this one circled, probably just like 47 times on the calendar, just continued circling it until he ran through the paper, because this is a track he can get it done on. And I think based on how his season is going, people are not going to be on him as much. Hopefully he'll start back in the 30s, maybe somewhere for you, where it's not a total obvious play all the way at the back, but solid enough to get you those place differential points, and he can get you a nice solid finish here. So yes, that's one. I'm glad you brought him up because I did not put him in here, but I did write him up in the article. So I'm glad we got to talk about him because he's a guy I'm very high on this weekend.
I think he circled it 43 times.
Oh yes. Wow. How'd I miss that?
He wanted Ricky Stenhouse. That's all. See, you said 47 subconsciously. That was in your brain.
I guess, yeah. I was still stuck on Stenhouse, I guess.
All right, get out your pen and paper. We're about to give you all of our plays for this GEICO 500 slate. Cody started you out with Brad Keselowski at $9,200. I followed with Denny Hamlin at $9,900. Cody gave you Bubba Wallace at $8,700. I said Ricky Stenhouse at $8,100. Cody gave you Riley Herbst at $5K, and I gave you Eric Jones at $6,700. All of those guys will fit in your lineup for sure. So build one of those at least, roll it out in a couple of different lineups, see how that goes. And then, of course, have Cody's kid pick the rest of all of your lineups for you as well.
Yeah, hey, my kids picked lineups, my wife's picked lineups, random number generator on on your phone right there. That's a good way to do it. just watch TV and look for numbers on a commercial or wherever. Like
Cody walks up and
seriously.
down grocery stores and says, "Give me a number. Give me a number."
Yeah. Hey, you pick a number. You pick a number.
Between
It's-
1 and 99.
yeah.
Give me a number between 1 and 99.
I'll be just, doing something random. I'll see a number. I'm like, okay, where's the next number? I just start filling out lineups. It is a lot of fun, but go again. The key to enjoying super speedways, plan on all your bets to lose, plan on all your fantasy to lose. Sit back, relax, enjoy the race. And when they win, you can be happy at the end of the day. If they lose, you already counted on them losing anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Indeed. Grab yourself an old fashioned, make that day even better for you, and have some fun watching Talladega, because it is Dega, baby. All right. That's it for the DFS show. We will be back with a special guest for tomorrow's episode to close out the week. Like we said, no trucks, so gotta have another guest. I think we'll have some fun with that guest as well. I think we'll come up with a new game. Maybe I'll even give you the score of the old one. You guys have been waiting patiently for a while now. Yeah. Listen, all I'm saying is that you got to know how to tease, right? We've teased the hell out of this now, so maybe we'll finally give it the conclusion that it needs when this next guest is on, right?
There you go. Yes, I'm excited to see it. If you didn't listen a couple weeks ago, we had Full Tank with Phil on. That was a very long episode, but it was a good one. We had a lot of fun on that one. Again, it's just kind of a free-for-all Friday, right? We kind of do whatever we want. No format we need to stick to. We've got all the races covered. DFS is covered. All your bets are in. Maybe we'll come up with a few extra bets. We can have our guests give out some of their favorite bets as well, and just have a fun episode, getting ready for a fun weekend of racing. I can't wait. I'm excited. Man, super speedway racing, Rod. Yes, let's go.
Let's go.
And hey, we did not mention to play him. Make sure you play Corey LaJoy. I don't care if he's $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. I don't know how much he is, but play him. He's $6,100. What?
$6,100.
So cheap. $6,100.
Well, I mean,
it's
Corey LaJoy. Everybody,
don't say it's Corey LaJoy, Rod. What the? All right, we better get out of here. I'm not happy with Rod anymore.
I'm just
it's
saying.
Corey LaJoy. Jeez.
From a fantasy
look at this man and say that again, Rod.
Well, no, I can't. See, when I look at that picture, I'm like, I can't look him in the eyes and tell him he's just Corey.
See, that's why you got to watch on YouTube, because we have fun props like the Corey LaJoy picture.
We sure do. And that's going to go down in history as a NASCAR Gambling Podcast prop of fame.
Hey, when Riley Herbst wins and cashes my 125-1 bet this week, I have a monster can handy. It's my Gronk monster can. Big Patriots fan. But I will be chugging a monster on the show. So when Riley or Ty Gibbs, either one. I'm on both. Two of the three monster guys. Sorry, Tyler Reddick. But when one of those two guys wins, it's going to be Monster Party City or something. I don't know.
Maybe I'll join you. I haven't had an energy drink in a while, but maybe I'll join you on that one. So,
anyways.
All right. Well, Cody, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you on social media as we wrap up today's episode?
Speaking of teases, I've been teasing my first round NFL draft mock. It is now changed to a 3-round NFL draft mock. And it will maybe be out when you're listening to this. If not, it'll be out by this weekend for sure. So make sure you go check that out over on sportsgamblingpodcast.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Husker_Zeeb. I'll share all my work there always. Got an article out as well with a couple bets, a couple DFS guys to watch for the weekend. So follow it all over there. Again, like, subscribe, click the bell, all that fun stuff. Maybe we'll have a live show Sunday night, depending on how our bets go and depending if we're around and how this cold is going for me. But it's going to be a fun time. Oh, man, super speedway racing. Let's go, Rod.
Hey, listen, I've got a river that's just on the other side of my house, a few feet down. If the bets don't go well, I'm probably just going to go run and jump into that river. So I may not have a live bet or a live show going that day. Just kidding. Just follow
Corey LaJoy wins. I might be jumping in the river for joy.
For Corey LaJoy.
Yes.
All right. Follow me on Twitter at RJ Villagomez. All the terrible dad jokes are there as well. A link in the bio and everything I got going on, whether it's here, whether it's in between media, the back road. Hope you caught that, and you can catch it again on YouTube with Seth and the boys. Support them as well. We're back tomorrow, having fun to wrap up the week. And until then, let's go racing and let it ride.